Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin, I'd love to know where you're watching me from. Drop your state in the comments section, and also subscribe to this channel. Now, let me take you into this story. The marble hallway felt cold beneath my bare feet. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. I watched my husband Daniel slip through a door at the end of the corridor, a suite I didn't recognize. Something in my gut twisted. I'd followed him from our room after he said he needed a walk to clear his head. The air in Dubai was thick and warm, even at night, but I felt frozen. I moved closer, my steps silent, my breath shallow. Through the crack in the door, I saw golden light from a chandelier. Then I saw her. My sister Chloe stood there in a white dress, her blonde hair falling over her shoulders. Daniel reached for her waist and pulled her close. "She doesn't know, right?" Chloe whispered, her voice nervous but excited. Daniel kissed her deeply, his hands moving up her back. "Relax," he murmured against her lips. "She's too dumb to notice." The chandelier flickered above them like a judgment from heaven. My legs went numb. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't scream. I didn't rush into that room. I didn't throw open the door and demand answers. Instead, I backed away slowly, one step at a time, until the sound of their laughter faded behind me. My hands were shaking so badly I had to press them against the wall to steady myself. The hotel corridor stretched endlessly in both directions, glittering and perfect, like nothing was wrong in the world. But everything was wrong. My husband, my sister, in a white dress, like some sick version of a wedding. I walked back to our suite, my mind blank and buzzing at the same time. When I reached the door, I paused and looked at my reflection in the polished gold frame. My makeup was still perfect. My eyes were dry. I looked exactly like the woman who had left this room 20 minutes ago, but I wasn't her anymore. That woman was dead. I whispered to my reflection, barely audible, "Not here. Not yet." Then I opened the door, slipped inside, and sat by the window overlooking the Arabian Sea. The city glittered below me, beautiful and indifferent. 1 week earlier, everything had been perfect. We were at the airport in California, the 5 of us, laughing and taking pictures in front of the departure board. My parents, John and Margaret Parker, were giddy with excitement. This was their first international trip, a dream they'd been saving for since I was a child. My father kept checking his passport every 5 minutes like it might disappear. My mother clutched her purse and smiled so wide her cheeks must have hurt. Chloe was bouncing on her heels, her phone out, recording everything. "Dubai, baby," she squealed, zooming in on the flight information. Daniel stood beside me, his arm around my shoulders, squeezing me gently. "This is going to be amazing, babe," he said, kissing my temple. I leaned into him, feeling safe and loved. I was so happy I could cry. My family, all together, heading to one of the most beautiful places on earth. Chloe grabbed Daniel's hand and pulled him toward the duty-free shops. "Come on, brother-in-law, help me find perfume." He laughed and let her drag him away. I watched them go, smiling. They'd always gotten along well. I thought it was sweet. I was a school counselor back home in California, a job I loved because it let me help kids find their way through hard times. I'd always been the calm one, the patient one, the glue that held people together. Daniel was my anchor. We'd been married for 3 years, and I still felt butterflies when he came home from work. He was a project manager at a tech company, smart and steady, the kind of man who never raised his voice. My parents adored him. He'd proposed to me at their anniversary party, getting down on one knee in front of everyone. My mother cried. My father shook his hand so hard I thought he'd break Daniel's fingers. Chloe had been my maid of honor, dancing with me at the reception, laughing until we couldn't breathe. She was my little sister, my best friend. She'd always been wild, chasing dreams and expensive things, but I loved her for it. She made life feel exciting. I never worried about her and Daniel. Why would I? They were my 2 favorite people. I trusted them completely. That trust felt warm and safe, like sunlight. I had no idea it was about to burn me alive. Dubai hit us like a dream. Golden sand stretched forever, skyscrapers rose like glass mountains, and the malls sparkled with more luxury than I'd ever seen in my life. Our first day, we went on a desert safari, bouncing over dunes in a massive jeep while the sun set in shades of orange and pink. Daniel held my hand the entire time, pointing out camels and laughing when I screamed on the steep drops. Chloe sat in the back with my parents, snapping endless photos. That night we had dinner under the stars, sitting on cushions around low tables while dancers twirled in sequined costumes. My father kept saying, "I can't believe we're really here." My mother kissed his cheek. I felt a lump in my throat. This was what happiness looked like. Daniel leaned close to me and whispered, "I'm so glad we did this. Your family means everything to me." I kissed him, tasting mint tea on his lips. Across the fire, Chloe was laughing at something, her face glowing in the firelight. She caught my eye and blew me a kiss. I blew one back. Perfect. Everything was perfect. The next day, we lounged by the rooftop pool at our hotel, the Burj Al Arab towering above us like a sail made of diamonds. The view was insane, the whole city spreading out below us, the ocean stretching to the horizon. I was reading a book under an umbrella when I heard splashing and laughter. Chloe had jumped into the pool right next to Daniel, soaking him completely. He gasped and splashed her back, laughing. "You're dead, Chloe." They chased each other around the pool like children, her squealing, him grinning. I smiled, watching them. My mother sat beside me, sipping a mocktail. "Chloe finally found someone she listens to," she said, chuckling. "Your husband is so good with her." I nodded, but something flickered in my chest, just for a second. The way Daniel's hand lingered on Chloe's shoulder when he helped her out of the pool. The way she looked at him, her eyes bright and playful. I pushed the thought away. They were just close. That was all. Family. I forced myself to smile wider and went back to my book, but the words blurred on the page. That night, I woke up to the sound of buzzing. Daniel's phone lighting up on the nightstand. The clock read 12 a.m. He stirred beside me, reaching for it quickly. "Work," he muttered, his voice thick with sleep. He got out of bed and walked to the bathroom, closing the door softly. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling. Work at this hour. In Dubai, I told myself it made sense. His company had clients all over the world, different time zones, but my chest felt tight. I turned toward the window and that's when I saw it. The reflection in the glass, his phone screen just for a second before he tilted it away. A heart emoji. And a name, just one letter. See, I froze, my breath caught in my throat. See, Chloe, no, it couldn't be. I was being paranoid. I was overtired. It was probably a coworker. Claire. Or Carlos, or anyone else. I squeezed my eyes shut and forced myself to breathe. But sleep didn't come back. I lay there until dawn, listening to Daniel's steady breathing beside me, feeling like a stranger in my own skin. The next morning, I stood in the hotel bathroom staring at my reflection. I'd put on makeup carefully, covering the dark circles under my eyes, painting my lips a soft pink. I looked fine, normal, but inside I felt like I was cracking. I leaned closer to the mirror and whispered, "Maybe I'm paranoid." My reflection didn't answer. I thought about the text, the heart emoji. See, I thought about the pool yesterday, the laughter, the way their hands touched. I shook my head. I was making something out of nothing. Chloe was my sister. Daniel was my husband. They loved me. I loved them. That was the truth. Anything else was just my anxious brain playing tricks. I splashed cold water on my face and took a deep breath. Today would be better. We were going to the Dubai Mall, the biggest mall in the world. We'd shop, eat, laugh. Everything would feel normal again. I walked out of the bathroom with a smile on my face. Daniel was still asleep, one arm thrown over his eyes. I kissed his forehead gently. He didn't wake up. Breakfast was in the hotel restaurant, a massive buffet with everything you could imagine. Pastries, fruits, eggs cooked a dozen ways. We sat at a table by the window, the sunlight pouring in. Chloe was in a bright yellow sundress, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked radiant. Daniel sat across from her, sipping coffee. I was between them, pushing scrambled eggs around my plate. "This place is unreal," Chloe said, biting into a croissant. "I could live here forever." Daniel laughed. "You'd spend all your money in a week." "Probably," she admitted, grinning. She passed him a napkin, her fingers brushing his. Their eyes met, just for half a second, but I saw it. That look, the way her smile softened, the way he didn't look away fast enough. My stomach dropped. My mother was talking about the mall, about which stores she wanted to visit, but I couldn't hear her. All I could hear was the pounding of my heartbeat in my ears. I set my fork down carefully. "I'm not very hungry," I said quietly. No one seemed to notice. After breakfast, Daniel said he wanted to check out the view from the lobby downstairs. "I'll be back in a few minutes," he said, kissing my cheek. I nodded, watching him walk away. Then 3 minutes later, Chloe stood up. "I'm going to grab some mints from the gift shop," she said brightly. She didn't look at me. She just walked toward the elevator. My instincts screamed. I waited 10 seconds, then I followed. My parents were too busy planning the day to notice me leave. The elevator doors closed just as I reached them. I watched the numbers light up. Lobby, then. 3rd floor, not the lobby. I took the stairs, my heart racing, my hands clammy. By the time I reached the third floor, I was breathless. I pushed open the stairwell door and stepped into the hallway. It was quiet, lined with doors and soft lighting. Then I saw him, Daniel, slipping into a suite at the far end. I moved closer, my bare feet silent on the marble. The door was cracked open, just a sliver. Enough to see inside, enough to see everything. The chandelier glowed golden above them. Chloe stood in the center of the room wearing a white dress I'd never seen before. It was simple, elegant, like something a bride would wear. Daniel reached for her, his hands on her waist, pulling her close. She giggled softly, tilting her head back. "She doesn't know, right?" Chloe whispered, her voice light and nervous. Daniel kissed her, not a peck. A real kiss, deep and slow, like he kissed me. "Relax," he murmured, his lips brushing hers. "She's too dumb to notice." His hands moved up her back, fingers tracing her spine. Chloe sighed, wrapping her arms around his neck. "Imagine if she finds out," she said, laughing softly. Daniel smirked. "She never will." I stood there, frozen behind the door, watching my husband unbutton my sister's dress. My chest felt hollow. My legs were shaking. I wanted to scream, to throw the door open, to tear them apart, but I couldn't move. I just stood there, watching the two people I loved most in the world destroy me. The chandelier flickered. My vision blurred. I backed away slowly, step by step, until I couldn't see them anymore. Then I ran. I made it back to my room and locked the door behind me. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely turn the lock. I walked to the window and stared out at the Arabian Sea, the waves rolling endlessly, calm and indifferent. My reflection stared back at me in the glass. My face was pale. My eyes were wide and empty. I pressed my hand to my chest, trying to steady my breathing. No tears came, just a hollow, aching silence. I sank into the chair by the window and sat there for what felt like hours. The sun climbed higher in the sky. The city below moved on, people laughing and living and loving. And I sat there, numb. Finally, I whispered into the stillness, "Now I know." The words felt small and broken, but they were true. I knew I couldn't unknow it. I couldn't go back to yesterday, to the version of me who trusted them. That woman was gone. I looked at my hands, steady now, resting in my lap. A strange calm settled over me. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. Not yet. I was going to be smart. The next morning, I went down to the hotel reception. The woman behind the desk smiled warmly at me. "How can I help you, Mrs. Parker?" I smiled back, calm and polite. "I need a small favor," I said softly. "I'm worried about safety on our floor. There was a strange man loitering near our suite last night. Could I possibly request the security footage from our hallway, just to make sure everything is okay?" Her face grew concerned. "Of course, ma'am. Let me speak with our security manager. We take guest safety very seriously." 20 minutes later, I had a USB drive in my purse. The footage from the third floor, time-stamped and clear. Daniel entering the suite. Chloe following minutes later. Both of them leaving an hour later, her dress wrinkled, his shirt untucked. I thanked the manager profusely, slipping the USB into my bag like it was nothing. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't waver. I walked back to the elevator, pressed the button for our floor, and smiled at my reflection in the mirrored walls. I looked calm, composed, dangerous. For the rest of the trip, I pretended everything was normal. We visited the Burj Khalifa, standing at the top of the world while my parents took photos. I smiled in every picture. We ate dinner at fancy restaurants, the kind with gold-flecked desserts and waiters in white gloves. I laughed at my father's jokes. I held Daniel's hand across the table. He looked relieved, like he'd been worried I'd sensed something. "You seem happy," he said one night, squeezing my fingers. "I am," I lied, smiling. Chloe wore that white dress again one evening to a rooftop dinner. She twirled in it, asking me if I liked it. "It's beautiful," I said, my voice steady. "Where did you get it?" "A little shop near the hotel," she said, her eyes darting to Daniel for just a second. "A gift to myself." I nodded, sipping my water. Inside, I was screaming. But outside, I was perfect, calm, kind, the loving wife and sister. They had no idea I was counting down the hours until we got home. On the plane ride back to California, I sat by the window, staring at the clouds below. Daniel was asleep beside me, his head resting on my shoulder. His breathing was slow and even. I looked down at him, at the face I'd kissed 1,000 times, and felt nothing. No love, no anger, just cold, quiet clarity. Chloe was a few rows behind us, probably scrolling through photos of the trip, editing them for social media. My parents were across the aisle, holding hands like teenagers. They looked so happy, so blissfully unaware. I reached into my purse and felt the USB drive, smooth and solid under my fingers. Evidence. Proof. Power. I leaned close to Daniel's sleeping face and whispered, so softly no one else could hear, "Rest well. You'll need it." Then I closed my eyes and let the hum of the plane carry me home. We landed in California late at night, all of us exhausted and jet-lagged. My father drove us home in his old SUV, the radio playing softly. My mother was half asleep in the passenger seat. Chloe was texting someone, her face lit by the glow of her phone. Daniel held my hand in the back seat, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. "I'm glad we did this," he said quietly. "Me too," I said. I wasn't lying. I was glad, because now I knew the truth. When we pulled into the driveway, I said, "I'll go unlock the door, you guys grab the bags." My father nodded, yawning. I walked up the steps alone, my heels clicking on the concrete. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The house was dark and quiet, smelling faintly of lavender from the air freshener I'd plugged in before we left. I turned on the lights. Then I waited. I heard them coming up the walkway, laughing about something, their voices light and tired. The door swung open. Daniel stepped in first, dragging his suitcase. Chloe followed, still on her phone, then they looked up and froze. On the living room wall, I'd arranged printed photographs, dozens of them, screenshots from the security footage blown up and crystal clear. Daniel entering the suite, Chloe in her white dress. Their kiss, his hands on her back, her head tilted back in laughter, time-stamped. Undeniable. My parents stepped in behind them. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. My father went silent, his face turning pale, then red. I stood in the center of the room, my arms crossed, my face calm. "Welcome home," I said quietly. Chloe's face went white. "Amelia, Don't," I said, my voice sharp and cold. "Don't say my name like you have the right." Daniel took a step toward me. "Babe, this isn't what it looks like." I laughed, actually laughed. It felt strange coming out of my mouth, bitter and jagged. "It's not because it looks like my husband having an affair with my sister." I pointed to the photos. "In Dubai, in a white dress. Tell me, Daniel, what exactly does it look like?" His mouth opened and closed like a fish. Chloe started crying, her hands shaking. "You invaded my privacy," she shouted, her voice breaking. I turned to her slowly, my eyes locked on hers. "No," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "You invaded my family." My father stepped forward, his face twisted with rage and heartbreak. He looked at Daniel like he'd never seen him before. "In my house," his voice cracked. "With my daughter," Daniel stammered. "John, I can explain." "Get out," my father said. His voice was low and shaking. "Get out of my house, now." My mother collapsed into a chair, sobbing into her hands. "What did we do wrong?" she whispered over and over. "What did we do wrong?" I knelt beside her and took her hand. "You didn't do anything, Mom, they did." Chloe was still standing in the doorway, her face streaked with tears and mascara. "Amelia, please, I'm sorry, I didn't mean..." "Didn't mean what?" I stood up, my voice rising. "Didn't mean to sleep with my husband. Didn't mean to put on a white dress and play bride with him. Didn't mean to laugh about how dumb I am." She flinched. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, Chloe? Explain it to me." She couldn't. She just stood there, crying, her hands trembling. Daniel grabbed his suitcase and walked toward the door. He paused beside me, his face desperate. "Amelia, I love you. I made a mistake, please." I looked at him, really looked at him, and I felt nothing. "You don't love me, Daniel," I said quietly. "You never did." Then I stepped aside and let him walk out of my life. The next morning, I woke up in my childhood bedroom at my parents' house. I'd stayed the night because I couldn't bear to go back to the apartment I'd shared with Daniel. My phone was buzzing on the nightstand. Texts from Daniel, calls from Chloe. I ignored them all. Instead, I opened my laptop. I attached the security footage to an email. The subject line read, "For your awareness." I sent it to Daniel's boss, his HR department, and 3 of his coworkers I knew personally. Then I sent it to Chloe's fiancé, a wealthy investor named Kyle who'd been planning to propose to her next month. I didn't write anything in the body of the email. I didn't need to. The footage spoke for itself. I closed my laptop. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel angry. I felt free. A week later, Daniel called me from a new number. I answered. "What do you want?" "I got fired," he said. His voice was hollow. "The company said I violated ethics policies. They said I embarrassed them during a company-sponsored trip." "Good," I said. "Amelia, please, I have nothing. I lost my job. I lost you. Chloe won't even talk to me." "Maybe you should have thought about that before you kissed her in Dubai." He was silent. Then he started crying. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "I know," I said. And I hung up. Chloe disappeared to another state. My parents told me she'd moved in with a friend in Oregon, too ashamed to face anyone. Kyle had broken off their engagement publicly, posting a message on social media about betrayal and honesty. It went semi-viral. People who knew Chloe started commenting, asking questions. She deleted all her accounts. I didn't feel sorry for her. I felt relieved. I filed for divorce. The papers were signed within 2 months. Daniel didn't fight it. He couldn't afford a lawyer anyway. I kept the apartment, the car, and my dignity. I started seeing a therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Patel who helped me untangle the mess of emotions I'd been carrying. "You're stronger than you think," she told me one session. I believed her. 3 months later, I moved to a small apartment near the beach. I could hear the ocean from my window at night. I started painting again, something I'd loved as a teenager but abandoned in my 20s. I drove alone at night, music loud, windows down. I learned to be alone without being lonely. One afternoon, Chloe sent me a letter. It was long, full of apologies and excuses, blaming Daniel for seducing her, begging me to forgive her. I read it once. Then I burned it in my kitchen sink, watching the paper curl and blacken. I didn't reply. She didn't deserve my words. On a quiet Sunday morning, I sat in a cafe by the beach, sipping coffee and watching the waves. A family sat nearby, laughing together, their joy genuine and warm. I didn't feel jealous. I didn't feel sad. I felt peaceful. I thought about Dubai, about the chandelier, about the white dress. And I realized something. I thought forgiveness meant forgetting. But it didn't. Forgiveness meant remembering without bleeding. Some betrayals didn't deserve confrontation. They deserved silence. Because sometimes silence wasn't a weakness. It was the loudest form of justice. I finished my coffee, left a tip, and walked out into the sunlight. The ocean stretched endlessly before me, full of possibility. And for the first time in months, I smiled. A real smile, because I was free. If you love this story, kindly subscribe to this channel and stay tuned as I bring more interesting stories to you.